Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, you voted for it. We put it up for a vote over on our Patreon page. And you've decided on Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's so weird that I am so bad at this because I thought you were talking to me and not the voters. And I'm like, I didn't choose this. The listeners chose this.
You forgot how and where voting happens.
I already forgot how we came upon this film. But the voters, the listeners, you all voted for Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. We gave you 4 treasure hunting films to pick from, and this was your hunting treasure fave.
This was it. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's no and. It feels like there should be an and.
It feels like it should be like him and the football team just going after the Ark.
Yeah, because I feel like the other two have an and.
In the Temple of Doom.
And the Temple of Doom and the Last Crusade. But this is, and it's also because this isn't called Indiana Jones, despite popular conception. It's just called Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Ooh, look at you already hitting up with some facts I didn't know.
Right?
So it's not even officially part of the canon.
Yeah.
So the canon's just the last 2 movies.
Even when the title card comes up in this movie at the beginning, it just comes up Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like it's not the Indiana Jones.
I miss the days where we didn't presume trilogies.
Right, yeah, exactly.
They were just like, we're making a one-off B movie where we're just going to go find the Ark of the Covenant real quick.
Yeah, and then in the next 2, it's Indiana Jones and these follow-up stories / the second one's a prequel. But it's weird. But you chose this. Y'all voted on this. The listeners. We did a vote for a treasure hunting movie because Uncharted is coming out, which we're going to be covering in a couple weeks on the podcast. So following a treasure hunting vibe, we put out a poll. There were a few different options. We put up the poll over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/FromSuperheroes, and it was open to everyone. You didn't have to be a patron to vote. So you can even also head over there and check out like previews for other additional content, bonus episodes. Check it out. But y'all voted for this one, and this is what we're doing this week.
This is what we're doing. I almost made it like hard to vote, like it would be a treasure hunt full of clues to even get how to vote.
Tell me more.
That was as far as I got on my ideas.
How was it hard to vote?
Like I was going to make it hard to vote.
Oh, this is all a hypothetical.
Yeah.
You're talking about like something that you thought about doing, but you did not, in fact, do.
I could talk all day about things I thought about doing and didn't do. There's a lot of things.
Like the From Superheroes ARG game where they have to go to like the Patreon page and like get a cryptech and then like decipher things.
Yeah, and like you get an email and then I give you a clue and then you got to like watch a movie to get another clue. I don't know. I'd probably steal it all from the Da Vinci Code. There'd be like a Fibonacci sequence in there.
The Da Vinci Code would be like your Mad Libs, but like you would just like find and replace. Like replace Bible with first Iron Man movie. And then you got to like find the reference there. It would be our style.
You know what? I should have brought it up with you earlier. We could have done it together.
I think we could have done.
We could have come up with something.
We could have done the From Superheroes ARG game.
I'll tell you my ideas earlier.
Thing no one is interested in.
Hey, there's me, there's you. That's 2.
I'm actually 1 foot out the door on this one.
Oh, no.
So you got 1.5.
Guys, what if I put Batman and Robin references in? Will you do the map then? They will.
I morally support you doing this.
Oh, that's fun.
Now I'm treasure hunt for you.
Next treasure hunt time.
There we go.
Little maps.
So we're going to be talking about that on this week's episode of the podcast. Then in a couple weeks, we're going to be talking about Uncharted. Thank you to everyone who voted. Thank you to all of our patrons, for everybody who checked out the page and voted in the poll. We appreciate you. But now let's get right into it. Let's talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That has Indiana Jones in it.
All right, so this is a movie we have comfortably seen before.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has.
Everyone has.
It's illegal.
We've all seen it. We're seeing it again. Diana, did you like it, though?
Can you imagine if I didn't like this movie?
I mean,
the riots in the streets?
The
tweets I would get?
It's a tough one because I think this is universally agreed upon as good. I don't think it's Riot in the Streets.
You don't think you don't think it has the hardcore fan base? Like it's not a Temple of Doom or a Last Crusade. This is Raiders.
I get it, and everyone loves and respects it, but I don't think it has the hardcore fan base. You know what I mean?
Like, get what you're saying.
Like I'm in an uproar. Like I think people like it and rightfully so, but I don't think it has the it is an uproar classic. I think it's a neutral classic.
Do you think it would have had an uproar classic vibe pre-Crystal Skull? Do you think Crystal Skull?
No, because I think even pre-Crystal Skull, like to compare it to like other of the era, like if we're talking about like 80s classics, I mean, it's certainly not Star Wars. It's certainly not Ghostbusters. You know, like no one at a Halloween party like this year is going to go dressed as Indiana Jones.
Yeah, okay.
But there will be people dressed as Ghostbusters. There will be people dressed as
Star Wars. For a fact.
We've been there. But it's just, it's a classic, but I don't think it is the super impassioned fan classic.
I kind of get what you're saying. To that end, yes, I did really, really, really like it. It's pretty close to a love. It's got some pacing issues that were not pacing issues in the 80s, but are pacing issues in 2022. So like it's kind of just dropped out of love for that. I guess maybe those reasons. So it's not a perfect film, but it's incredibly charming. The stunts are incredible for the time. You can just always see Harrison Ford's face. You're like, oh shit, Harrison. No wonder you just are grumpy all the time doing so many stunts. Karen Allen's incredible in this. I am shocked that I did not remember her being this good. And like the story is incredible, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a great movie. Andrew, did you like Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I think it's terrific. Yeah. I think it is absolutely terrific. I think there is definitely some stuff with like a modern eye that isn't necessarily as strong as it was in the 80s, but I think for the most part it still holds up. I disagree with you on pace. I actually really like the pace of this movie. I think it ebbs and flows and moves at a good clip. I'm kind of on board for the whole thing. I think it's absolutely perfect pacing. So I disagree with you on the pacing, but I do agree with you on Karen Allen is a goddamn delight and the true star of this movie and the one who makes it all happen. Like Harrison Ford is good and he's doing Harrison Ford. Karen Allen is doing everything.
She is doing incredible things. Like as soon as this movie was over, I had to open her IMDb to be like, why didn't you become a bigger star? And like she's consistently worked, like she's taken breaks to do Broadway, but then she'll do like one episode of Law and Order and one episode of like Blue Bloods, and I'm like, why aren't you just giant? You are incredible. The humanity you brought to this role and just the like clumsy but not an oaf, like just like real kind of way a person would act in these situations, and like kind of this like gruff way she has of walking whenever they put her in one of these nice dresses. There's so much to love about her performance as Marion. It is the star of the show to me. Marion and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, everybody. Renaming this film. If it's not called Indiana Jones, then it's not.
Yeah, it should be Marion. You're right. She is the star. Like the physicality, you're right, of like this kind of like, her character is so complex. Like Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. I agree with that. Like I agree with the idea that like he really owns this character. He brings himself to it, and it is part of the reason why this movie comes to life and why this movie has a series of films for sure. But she is more of a three-dimensional character than him, and not due to the writing, entirely due to Karen Allen's performance of Marion. Like, yeah, this kind of like brutish, I'm tough, but I'm also frazzled at times, but not in a damsel in distress way, in a way that's just kind of complex and human with varying responses to varying situations, none of which seem out of character as well, which is very interesting.
Yeah, because in a movie, it's so hard to give a character, especially not the main character, different levels to work with. Because normally it's like, you're the funny one, you're the damsel in distress. Like, these are the only things you get to do. So for her to be like, I'm the damsel in distress, but I also fight, but I also like remove blocks from planes, and I shoot gun planes or plane guns, and like I do all these other things. It's so rare, and it's so, and like there's so much more complexities than Indy has. Like for her to be like, I fight guys, but also I'm gonna get this guy drunk and like not seduce him just so he'll be like drunk and I can run away. Like so many things are happening with her character. And it always does feel consistent. You're right. It never feels like it's like, well, what kind of character is she now? It's like, no, she's Marion.
She's Marion the entire time. Yes.
Yeah. It's an incredible character, and she does an incredible job.
Yeah, a very, very excellent portrayal. I adore her, and I think the lack of her is part of the reason why the second film, Temple of Doom, doesn't work. Which is
the girl in Temple of Doom's
awful. A whole different can of worms. But everyone who's a support character in Temple of Doom is two-dimensional. It is this is the girl. She is idiotic to the point that she is borderline a baby. This is a hot baby that Indiana has to take care of.
Not even born sexy yesterday, just a hot baby.
Yes, absolutely. Ugh. And then hey, this is Short Round. He is comedy. Do you like comedy? He is comedy. Comedy. Nothing. Whereas Marianne is very well rounded and a great performance. It's part of what makes this so special. It makes it better than the bad second movie.
Yeah. Well, here's a really sad thing about you mentioned earlier that at the very top, like, this isn't the first time we've seen this movie for anybody. I actually saw Temple of Doom so many times because for reasons I do not understand, it's the only one of the three that my father owned. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Dad, now years later as an adult, I'm like, why did you only own Temple of Doom? So I thought it was the best Indiana Jones. I'm like, well, if my dad only owns this one Indiana Jones movie,
right,
this must be the best of the three.
I think there was this like mid to late 90s. I think a lot of people had a similar experience with this and other film franchises. And we were even talking about this recently with friends, where it was due to bargain bin VHSs or the cable rights to air it on television being incredibly cheap. A lot of people's experiences with film franchises are watching the worst one of them.
That makes
sense. Because there was just this window where it was like, this is the absolutely cheapest one to put on.
I love my father so much, but I can totally see him looking at a shelf and seeing Indy 1 and 2 were $35 and Temple of Doom was only $25 and being like, well, I'm going to buy Temple of Doom.
Right, or 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are the expensive ones. 2 is, yeah.
He absolutely would have done that. And I'm guessing that's exactly why he only owned Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's a trash movie compared to this film.
Yeah.
I do think the pacing gets a little slow in the middle. I think once the Ark is on the truck, there's just like no dialogue and the music's very repetitive, the whole like indie truck scene.
Right.
So that's the only part that
it's great music, but I agree with you.
Music,
they are hitting that theme for a long ass time.
Yeah, they wrote like 15 seconds of music and then hit it on loop like a cartoon background.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, well, either this scene has to be shorter or you got to write some more music, buddy.
Yeah.
One of two things has to happen.
That is something that I did. I 100% agree with you, and I flat out forgot about this movie because the Indiana Jones music, it's another John Williams piece. It is incredibly iconic.
It swells and it makes you full of joy and adventure.
And when I think back on this movie, like when I think of like my childhood seeing it, I'm like, it plays in this movie twice. And you're right, in the middle of this movie, I'm like, it has been playing for 14 straight minutes to the point that as great as it is, by like minute 14 of the car chase, when it's like da 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 da, I'm like, I can't. No. I fucking can't with you right now.
Can you believe he threw another punch? Da 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 da.
Oh my, I can't with you. I just can't with you.
This is how you know you've used your theme song too much, if Diana notices it. That John Williams?
Yes.
I'm the litmus test.
Yeah.
If I notice it and can repeat it after the movie's done, too much.
There is a razor's edge of the perfect amount of music where it has crossed the threshold of subtlety and Diana has noticed it but not remembered it. Subliminal. That is the razor thin edge where good movie music should exist for Diana's
watching purposes, but also for yours. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I thought it was too much, then I can't even imagine for you, a man who notices music, to be like, da 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 da.
And like at that point, I'm just like, it's a good song, but I'm just listening to a song in the way that I would appreciate a good song. Like it doesn't bring me on the emotional journey of this scene anymore. So yeah, I agree with you. A little bit overused, but I disagree with the pacing because while I, on paper, will agree that it slows down in the middle, I think it earns that. I think that it moves at such a good pace and it sets up all these pieces that when it does slow down in the middle, it feels like a necessary breath. It actually feels kind of needed, and if it continued at the same pace, it would be a little too frenetic for me. It's actually one of the rare, it's not quite 2 hours, it's almost 2 hours. I think it's like a hair's length from 2 hours, but it's one of the few 2-hour movies I've watched where I don't see 20 minutes that can just go. I'm like, I actually like where it breathes.
I don't even really want any of it to go. I think just the middle section has 3 back-to-back action sequences that are all a bit too long. Right. And there's no like dialogue or plot happening in between. It's we break the wall to get out of the snake pit, the whole thing with the plane, and then the very long truck chase scene.
Right.
And it's 3 just back-to-back, like, great individual sequences. Like, oh, my God, the snake pit is iconic. It's absolutely incredible. The plane is actually really fun and crazy dangerous. And then the truck one is also fun as well. So, like, I don't want to cut any of them, but they could be shorter, or there could be, like, some dialogue or something funny happening in the middle.
Yeah.
Would be my biggest complaint about Raiders Marion and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I agree. I think the chase probably could be skipped, especially when I think of Indiana Jones in a chase scene. I immediately jump to the Last Crusade. There's like the tank chase scene, and that's very, very cool and very unique. And this is just like a third action scene. So I agree with you on that. I don't mind that it's a little lengthy, but I do agree it is kind of 3 of the same thing back to back.
Yeah, and like he needs to get the Ark, so I guess you kind of have to keep at least part of that chase scene, unless they just like take that plane. Because you got to have the plane, because you got to hit the guy with the propellers.
Yes.
Oh my God. Now here is a question I genuinely have, and the trivia was so long I couldn't find the answer. The trivia is 45 minutes long. I don't know how I measured something in minutes that is words, but it is, you guys.
Sure.
Do you know when they did the fight scene, are there actual propellers just going while Harrison Ford is fighting that guy? I don't know how you like fake that. Are they like rubber and they're just not going very fast?
I'm willing to bet they're rubber and not going very fast.
Okay.
Right? Because the other thing is that like all they would have to do, and I say all that they would have to do is if it's an incredibly easy aspect of filmmaking, but for incredibly well-trained professionals who work in cinematography, it is. All they have to do is figure out the right motor speed with a foam propeller versus the frame rate that they're capturing it at so that it captures the motion blur in a way that it looks as fast as it does with the human eye. But because the camera shutter is moving at a speed that's different than the human eye, you can get that motion blur and look of the speed without achieving the same speed.
I always forget about that cool frame rate thing.
So it would just be like a mathematical formula for like what is the minimum speed we need for it to look like that, and also probably foam. I would guess. I would absolutely guess.
That makes a lot of sense, because in all the things I did read about like some accidents, there's like the people are sick and then people get run over by planes. There was nothing about like those were real propellers and someone lost an arm.
Right.
So the propellers, I was like, I don't know how they did this, but that makes perfect sense. Foam and shutter speed.
And probably a weak motor that just like if you jammed an arm in there, the motor would shut off.
It's like when you stick your finger in a fan.
Yeah, like
it doesn't get chopped up.
A fan on camera looks as fast as a prop plane, and the motor would just give out before it would chop through bone. Unless you got a special fucking crazy fan in your home, maybe.
I didn't tell you about our special fan.
Oh
but
shit!
It's back in the other room.
That's wild.
It's my intruders fan, so I can throw an intruder into it if they break in.
Whoa.
I gotta really like open up the closet and set it up. So like, let me know if there's an intruder coming.
Right.
I got things to do.
Let's talk a bit about the opening of the movie, because it's a pretty iconic goddamn opening. There's a lot going on, some absolutely beautiful stuff, and leave it to a Spielberg movie to create certain visual elements that, while inspired by things before, become kind of like so iconic for how Spielberg does it. Like it's a cliche name to be associated as a director. Like it's so it's Spielberg. But like the moment when Jones steps into the light, that hero shot of the shaded figure who just cracked a whip stepping forward to be fully like front lit from complete darkness is just such an iconic shot. And it's not the first time it's been done, but it looks so right here.
It looks very right. It's not the most iconic thing. Like, I think you were talking earlier about how this movie doesn't have like a raging fan base, but I will say it's like the most parodied, most kind of known movie.
Right.
That shot doesn't really come up too much, but it is like, you're right that it's like, it's a cliche at this point, but it's cool in this movie. Like, to be so good with a whip that a guy with a gun is afraid, I'm like, wait a minute, you had a gun.
Makes no sense. It fell in the water, but still, like, you could have shot a gun first.
You could have shot a gun first. You just could have tried to fight him with your hands. But yeah, it's cool that they like keep him in shadows until he like brings out the whip, because it's like 3 minutes of these other two and him just being like the cool guy who you can only see and you're not sure if it's the villain or the hero, because it's the first we've seen the movie. Like, his name's not in the title, we don't know who this is, and it's like, don't you guys worry, it's Harrison Ford, he's the good guy. And then we go into, well, Alfred Molina's also there.
Yes, yeah, young Alfred Molina in his first film role. So young, he has a different human face. Somehow his face has changed shape, not just aged, but like his bones have moved.
I agree. It is very much like when we saw like No Way Home, and you're like, wait a minute, CGI machine, that's not what his face looked like before. And so 3 different faces for Alfred Molina.
He's a complex actor. He's a complex performer, doing a fantastic job here. I love him as this lackey. Like, when Jones is almost getting it, and he's on the other side of like the spike pit, and it's just like touching his fingers, and is like oohing and eyeing, and like, his anxious anticipation of the moment really carries through the camera.
I also really like the calm ridiculousness this whole sequence starts out with. Them both just covered in tarantulas. Like, they don't freak out, and it's like very like, this is par for the course of what happens. It is so many tarantulas, though. Alfred Molina was covered in spiders.
Yes.
Like, this shot should have appeared in Spider-Man somehow. I don't know. They're connected. This is his true origin story of why he hates Spider-Man.
Of hating spiders.
I was once covered in 50 tarantulas, and they were alive.
Some of them were. I think some of them were plastic, but like this movie, I think like that's how they do like the snakes too, where it's like it's a half and half.
Some of them are ropes, or not ropes, or hoses, and some of them are real snakes. Yeah, and it was actually a great scene to be like, Indiana's really smart. He wore a leather jacket. A spider can't bite through that, and that's why he's not worried. And then Alfred Molina's like, it can bite through my shirt.
My shirt, it's just a
shirt. My shirt is just some cotton or some kind of thin fabric, perhaps.
Very thin. Please help me, sir.
Very thin.
Please help me. It's wafer thin.
It seems dumb to wear a leather jacket until you're like, what about all the snakes and the spiders? And even if a zombie showed up, he'd be fine.
It never seemed dumb. It just seemed a little toasty, a little too warm for certain situations.
That, to me, is dumb. You're gonna pass out from heat stroke.
Yeah, there are moments in this film where I can't tell if Harrison Ford is sweating due to the leather jacket in the desert or the malaria he definitely had while filming. But like, that's a thin line to walk. The malaria to leather jacket ratio is a pretty razor thin.
There are 2 sequences in this film where Harrison Ford just jumps into the water to escape, and those must have been his favorite days. I'm going to jump in the water to get away from these guys, and then I'm going to jump on this submarine. Oh boy, loving this day. What about the next scene where I'm getting out of the water? Can we make sure I'm wet? Yeah. Excellent. Wet Harrison Ford.
And such a good shot of that plane like flying as he's like holding onto it and climbing up into the cockpit. Really well done. And then it flying directly into the sunset is beautiful as well. There are some just gorgeous shots in this movie. Like, it's very iconic, like what you mentioned earlier, how often parodied or satired this is. That opening jungle scene, the running and jumping on the plane, obviously being chased by a boulder. The boulder one more for its like scenario and choreography, but even just like the light beaming down on that golden statue in the bag of sand, like these are such carefully lit shots. Whether it's like from Indy walking out of the shadow into the light, or the lighting on the golden statue, or the plane flying directly into the sunset, or the shadows of the figures as they enter certain rooms and things like that, which is, maybe overdone, but like carefully designed lighting. Really interesting look throughout all of this.
Really interesting. I don't want to just glance over all the shadow stuff, because the shadow stuff is cool. Like, it does get to maybe like the 5th time it gets used. It's like, okay, this is like a puppet theater now at this point. But the shadows is a thing I think we don't use in film anymore, and which is very fun. Like, the first one is Indy like showing up at Marion's bar, and like just such a clean silhouette, and you're like, even though we've only just met Indiana Jones, you're like, like, that's Indiana Jones, guys. Shit, he's here. And it kind of just makes this iconic vibe of like, this is a man people know by a silhouette.
Right.
And that's a cool thing to say right off the top of meeting a man.
And and the silhouette is larger than Marianne, and that's in the framing and in the shot. It's this incredibly large silhouette, this shadow of him splashed against this back wall. But he's a larger than life character. Like he is a what a child would draw if you asked them to draw an adventurer. Like it is such a larger than life look and physical embodiment that it really does like match and suit that. And then I think they do it for like one of the Nazis at one point as well. And I'm like, okay, but like,
what are we saying
that's just
about
like
this?
Now a soft shape of kind of a pudgy man in a leather duster. So like it's not really thematically serving the same purpose.
Yeah, it kind of, and I think that was also in the bar. So I feel like they just kind of had the camera set up still and they were like, what else makes a shadow?
Send the other guy in there.
Send the other guy with the big hat in. Is his hat going to look as good? And maybe that was the idea. Like, he doesn't look as iconic as Indy. This guy sucks.
Right.
This guy's a Nazi. His outline.
Fuck this
shit.
guy. Yeah.
Fuck this guy. He's got a pudgy outline. His hat's not as good.
Look at this dumpy shit outline. And maybe, but if that was the purpose, I feel like that doesn't really thematically work in silhouette. To be like, oh yeah. I can tell by that man's shadow he's a Nazi is not a thing I've ever thought about a shadow.
Or at least you could have had like Marion like see the shitty shadow and be like, this guy sucks.
Look at this fucking little.
That's not Indiana
Jones.
Jones.
Little idiot.
Yeah, his shadow could have been tiny. Little tiny shadow.
Yeah, playing with it could have sold it and actually like worked with that effect a little bit more.
But yeah, I like the shadows. I didn't want to gloss over them because I think it's a cool thing you don't see anymore.
No,
you don't see a lot of shadow work.
No. Can we talk about the fact that Indy is a dick? Like he's an asshole. Like the whole British colonialism of it all is pretty gross and shitty, right? Like it's weird that he's an American character who's teaching in Britain, but who's asked by American.
Oh, is he teaching in Britain? I thought his friend was just British.
Oh, I thought that was like
because the soldiers are American.
I thought he was in
the
England.
Military was.
Oh, I could be wrong. Anyway, either way, it's gross. He's gross.
I can't believe that's the reason you think he's gross. Because I also think Indy sucks for totally different reasons.
Okay.
But of course, it's awful to go to another country and be like, I'm taking this for English museums, whether they're British or American.
Sure.
I don't know.
Like,
the British do seem more like they buy stuff.
I mean, that is historically their thing, which is taking things
like,
from other countries to put it in museums.
Americans are like, whatever, we might have one museum somewhere.
I think
it's got the Declaration of Independence in it.
The American move is more, I've sold it to a private collector. It's more of a stuffy type of a thing, whereas the British move is like I stole it for museums, and that makes us right because we are the only purveyors of history.
The country we stole it from doesn't have a museum.
As long as we're allowed to be the caretakers of history, we'll always look good, they say.
Yeah, Indy went to Cairo, found the Ark of the Covenant, put it on a ship to bring back to London.
Yeah. Well, even before that, even on that first adventure where he doesn't get that golden nugget, that golden statue, whatever that was, and he comes back and he's like, I stole some other stuff. I can sell this to you. And
desperate.
And his British friend is like, well, yeah, of course. Like,
of course we'll buy that.
Like, and it's all clearly illegal because he even like acknowledges it and says it to Indy to be like, you know, you always have the same deal with us. We'll keep it quiet. We'll buy anything that you bring back. And it's like, so you know that this man is a criminal who is still stealing cultural relics from foreign nations.
They have a throwaway line that the British guy says in a tone that I can't quite place, which is like, and I'm sure you procured these through
like the legitimate means,
archaeological means. And the way he said it, I'm like, are you being sarcastic or did he actually in 1936, could you just do this? If you had I've got a permit, I'm an archaeologist, I can steal from you.
Well,
what were the rules?
He says it sarcastically, but then he also implies that he's paying Indy under the table and that no one can know where he got them. So I'm like, okay, so I think that was sarcastic to be like, none of this is above board. I think that the things you could do were atrocious.
That's fair.
But this is below that. That's where this is in history. That the bar for heroism in this movie is not Nazi. And don't get me wrong, it's
great to not be a Nazi.
it is, I'm not even going to say it's great. It's literally bare minimum. It is like the only reason Indy is the hero of this movie is Indy is not a Nazi. Other than that, he is a murderous thief of cultural relics. He is even in his class, he's talking about and then the bane of archaeological existence, grave robbers. Hate those people. It's like, you're a grave robber, you dick. And you think you're better because you sell it to a museum, but you still rob and sell.
Yeah, I don't know at what number of years grave robbing becomes archaeology. 50? 25? How many years are you in the ground before you're an archaeological dig?
That's a great observation. I never really thought about it. There is an imaginary amount of time where grave robbing becomes archaeology.
Yeah, you find an Egyptian tomb 1,000 years later, you're like, we got to dig it up. But
right.
At one point it was only there for 50 years. Was that not grave robbing then?
Now, I'm actually going to say the more I think about it, it is not based on the amount of time, but whether or not you are white and English. So I think that is the difference.
That is true.
When Indy is pointing at the chalkboard and being like, these terrible grave robbers, and I'm like, you're talking about people from that country, aren't you?
The people from there who took their own artifacts?
I don't think it's about the amount of time. I think it is about whether or not you are privileged enough to look down on other people.
That is a great point. I will say, I don't know if they got, I don't feel like in the 80s they got flack for this, but I do like about Temple of Doom that he is redeemed in that way. He gets an artifact back for an indigenous tribe and gives it back to them.
Right.
So way to go, Indy. Really grew a little bit as a person in 2.
A little bit. Even though 2 was a prequel, so he should know better.
Well, then he's really backtracked.
No, yeah, he's just an idiot and an asshole.
He was like, I didn't get any money for that.
Yeah.
When I gave that tribe their thing back.
Fuck that.
I have totally different reasons that Indiana Jones is an asshole. He, twice in this movie, not once, twice, decides that this box is more important than Marion's life.
He certainly does.
Absolutely, 100%, without a doubt, to her face. Both times is just the box is more important. I know you've been kidnapped by Nazis and they've got you locked up in this tent and they're making you wear nice dresses, but I really gotta go find that old box.
Yeah.
And then she's being held at knife point or gunpoint off to die when they open this Ark up, and he still can't blow the thing up with a missile. Mm-hmm. You value this Ark more than human life.
Granted, blowing it up with a missile, if they refuse to give her back, wouldn't save her. But still, he couldn't. It
creates a distraction. You run away.
Yes.
It gives you opportunity at the very least.
Yes.
Yeah. And the fact that
he is not doing that because he is trying to respect the religious faith of the people who believe in
absolutely not. He's bringing it back to London to sell. He's not I am so deeply religious that I can't destroy the Ark of the Covenant. He barely knew what it was when the military guys showed up.
When he is pointing a rocket at the Ark of the Covenant, not once does he think to himself but the Jewish people, I need to think about the faith. He is just yum, yum, gold. Yum, yum, I know magic is real, and I would like the magic powers, sir. Yum, yum. That's what he is thinking.
I disagree. He doesn't think magic is real at this point. So he just thinks that's a box.
Okay. I would counterpoint with the Temple of Doom prequel thing to say that he's seen
They
voodoo
didn't
magic,
know that when they made this movie.
Air quote. But yes, they didn't know that when they made this movie. But he also seems to inherently know not to look because he understands. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
But I think that there is an implication that and even when he's looking at the photograph and at the museum before he leaves for the adventure, and one of the American guys is like, "What are these lines here?" And he's like, "That's lightning. That's the lightning that comes out of the box." It's not just they have a story that says that there was light. He's just yes, I know factually that lightning comes out of the box.
Sir, we all know that lightning comes out of the box. God said write things on a piece of stone, and it made box lightning. It's obvious.
You're familiar with our Lord, lightning in a box.
Jesus spoke of him frequently.
Like,
have you met my father? Boxed Lightning?
Boxed Lightning? You know,
Boxed Lightning is a dope name.
You know, the spooky ghosts come out, and they are much like T-Rexes. They can't see you if you don't look or move. No, I think it's more of a bird box. It's
I
a
was
bird
going to
box.
say it's Bird Box.
We'll get to the ending later, but
It's a Bird
I
Box
think he knows
scenario.
magic is real. But yes, he chooses the Ark over Marianne at every possible turn.
Every turn. He never chooses this lady. It is sad. She should not be with him at the end. Two chooses of the Ark over me? Absolutely not.
No. And especially when it's not like she was in a normal prison or was somewhere inconvenient. It was, you are tied to a pole in a tent in the desert by Nazis. No one knows that you are here. You are not even filed as a prisoner. You are not a political prisoner. You are not a prisoner of war. This archaeologist has even said, he's like, she's my prize. You're not even technically a prisoner.
There is no police looking for you. There is no backup coming. You will just be disappeared off the face of this earth.
And Indy's reaction to that is yeah, you know what? I'll see how you're doing in 24.
I'll check in on you.
I'll check in on you.
I gotta go dig a hole.
Good luck with all that.
Glad you're alive. Woo. Frankly, it'd be more convenient for me if you were dead. But I might come back and check on you. He never does. She has to free herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ugh. Indiana Jones absolutely sucks. I mean, he's cool, but he also absolutely sucks.
Oh, yeah, he's a piece of shit. Fuck this guy. Fucking hate this guy. The best thing about him is not Nazi. That is it. That in a movie that only contains Nazis in Indiana Jones is the only scenario in which I like this man. That is it.
Ooh, that is it.
And even in that movie, I'm like, Marion's the one I like.
Lead. She's incredible. Yeah, we're rooting for Marion.
Yeah, it is Marion, and then a distant second is Indy, and then a far distant third is all of the other characters, which are literal Nazis.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Sala's cool.
John Rhys Davis?
John Rhys Davis.
Yes.
Yeah, he's dope.
Yeah, always plays a cool character, John Rhys Davis.
Always plays. Also, you know what? I am going to throw out, though, also a real shit dad. John Rhys Davies' character sees that Indiana Jones is in trouble in this bar and there's a whole bunch of guns pulled on him and sends his own children in there to get Indy out. He sends 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-old kids. He's got a lot of kids. And he sends all of them into the bar full of guns to get Indy out of there.
And all the Nazis, or I guess the hired guns of the Nazis, are just start laughing what a cute gag. But they're we're not going to shoot the kids.
We're not going to shoot the kids.
We're not going to shoot the kids.
So I guess he knew they wouldn't, but you didn't know the Nazis would.
You did not know that.
If the hired locals, I get not shooting kids, but the Nazis are going to shoot them.
Yeah, the Nazis are going to do it. They don't give one damn about you.
So you're a cool friend and I really like you, but you're a shit dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad dad.
Nope.
So those were his biological kids, right? They were at the home?
I believe so. That was the impression I got.
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't sure if they were his biological kids or if it was these are my kids. These are some people who
street orphans.
Yeah, I take care of. I've got a Dickensian gang, basically, was his thing. I wasn't sure.
A lot of that scene was not in English and not subtitled, so it was hard to know.
All right, fair enough. Mm-hmm. So who knows? But either way, you used some kids as a human shield.
He used kids as a human shield, no matter what.
Which is an interesting choice.
But I also got the impression that he was big on paying his workers a fair wage. He's a complicated man.
All right, I respect that
That's a weird
about this
thing
dude.
to be the Nazis don't just suck because they're Nazis. They also underpay workers. And he's like, Indy, I like that you're going to pay me a fair wage to dig this hole.
And he was mad at the scabs
He was mad at them.
Sala was they'll take any job
For
just
pennies.
For pennies, big dumb idiots. Him implying they don't understand the collective bargaining power of the workforce. I'm you are my fucking dude, my guy. Yeah, you're goddamn right, my dude. Yeah.
It really spoke to how Indy can get loyalty in this country. He's like, well, I'm just going to pay you a proper wage. You're like, well, I'm going to get you so many men, they're going to die for you. We're going to be on your side no matter what.
Fuck, that's good. Yeah.
So yeah, very complicated. Everyone's complicated but Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones just I want to steal from museums, and everyone else is layered.
Yes, I want to steal from museums. I have diarrhea, so I'm going to shoot you. And that's all that's going on in his head.
His tiredness is incredibly relatable. I don't know if that's how he would have performed this movie if he didn't have diarrhea the whole time.
Right.
But just Indy's like exhaustion with everything is just like, it feels very modern. It feels very in place in 2022 that I would see a movie where like the action hero would just be like, I don't want to fight another guy.
I agree. It is very like, to go back to a couple of weeks ago, like almost Jackie Chan-esque to a certain degree of that like Hong Kong cinema where like heroes were allowed to like show pain and exhaustion and vulnerability in certain ways. And Harrison, as a curmudgeon, brings that to this character in a different North American kind of a vibe, but a vibe that works. It's one that, yeah, for decades after, we didn't see. You know, like everyone kind of loved, a few years back, that Daredevil hallway fight scene because he was exhausted. Mm-hmm. He was just an exhausted, tired man. And even though we slowly over the past like 10 years been seeing more and more of that and a resurgence of that, it's still been a while. And Indy is a great example of like how much more dynamic that makes an action scene when it is a hero who's like, oh, fuck. Like... And that is the great, I think, ebb and flow and why I like the pacing of this movie, even from the opening action scene, where it really goes from, like, every action scene really follows these paces of, like, I'm a cool guy, check it out, I'm cool. I did a thing successfully. Pretty cool cucumber. Oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. Got it back. Pretty cool. Oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh. And I like that rhythm that it kind of follows.
Yeah. Indy fails a lot for an 80s action hero. Like, there is a reason that, like, I think Die Hard was after this, but, like, Die Hard was very similar of, like, this is groundbreaking. He's vulnerable, and he's failing, and he's hurt, and he's alone, and he's not super muscular, and neither is Indy. Indy's not particularly muscular in any way. And it's kind of, like, different to see. But, yeah, his opening is failure. He doesn't get the golden icon. Belloc is like, at every turn, this guy is not really outsmarting him, kind of just like out-moneying him. Right. It seems like I've got more resources than you every time. You're much smarter, and I just follow you around like an ambulance chaser, and I'm like, got it at the end. So yeah, it's an interesting take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole Belloc thing, the fact that Belloc steals that idol from him in the opening is a weirdly personal moment where Belloc's like, I hired all of the indigenous peoples here to help me out.
And I bet he paid them pennies and they didn't know what their labor was worth.
That's the continuing thing with him. Interesting.
He buys local labor and bet he underpays them.
So one of the things that kind of make me dislike Indiana of all of the things, because there's a lot of things going on in this movie. But Indy is a stone cold killer who's killed before.
Yep. And unflinching.
At no point does he kill them and is like, it's the movie is telling us it's okay, they're a Nazi. But there are flat out times where Indy kills people where I think that he doesn't know they are Nazis and does not come to terms with that. Like the first couple of people he kills in the bar with Marianne, I think he just thinks that those are Belloc's goons. He doesn't know they're not. Like he watches a man's brain exit the front of his head. And
While
Indy
lit on fire. Well, that guy double died. And it cuts to Indy. And Indy's literally smiling like he's a cool guy. Got him. This isn't wartime. And I don't think knows that guy is a Nazi. And also, that guy might not even be a Nazi and actually might be a local Nepalese guide that the Nazis hired. And Indy is literally like this shit-eating grin staring at Marion, and he's just like, wasn't that cool how I snuffed out a man's life? It's like, no, actually, that was very uncool, Indy. You should be less cool about this dude who says his job title is just archaeologist. Yeah. Like, you're not a Navy SEAL who also likes relics. You're just supposed to be an archaeologist.
And he's killed before.
He's killed before, and he'll kill again. Oof. And pretty unflinchingly.
Yeah. Because, like, I get that a lot of action movies will do the, like, and especially after this when ratings became much harsher, because in the 80s it was like you could have full-on nudity and just brain-melting kill show and
PG.
it wouldn't be R. Not that the rating system fucking mattered ever, but it got way harsher in the 90s. But this is... Afterwards, it becomes this, like, heroes are very forcibly, like, not killing. Like, oops, this person, like, slipped and fell out of frame, which is maybe off of a building. Don't worry about it. They're not dead. Like, there's a lot of, like, you know, if you don't see it, don't worry about it kind of thing for heroes killing. And I'm not saying it needs to go to that extreme, but it doesn't need to cut to Indy smiling, super proud of himself when he has killed a man.
Indy lays on the ground and just kind of happily waits while the propellers hit the guy.
Yeah.
That's a harsh way to die.
That is, I would actually say that the propeller, it's harsh, but like that is maybe
a life
the
or
most
death situation.
That and the playing it for comedy with the sword guy, the scene where Harrison Ford had diarrhea and wanted it to end, that works. I think those are like the two kills that you could keep in this movie, and some of the other stuff, it's like, Jesus Christ, Indy, fucking cool it.
Because I will say, this is a razor thin thing that maybe you think you're allowed to say. You can tell me if this is okay.
Okay.
So we're in between World War I and II.
Sure.
And Germany sucked. They started World War I.
Yeah.
But like, they weren't racist yet, were they?
They were.
Were they?
They were. We weren't at war with them for it, but they were.
Okay, I thought it was like, because it's like 20 years in between. I thought it took them like 10 or 15 years.
They're ramping up.
All right. Well, because like World War II didn't happen yet, so these are just guys.
Sure. Yes. I see what you're saying.
In 1936, we're like, yeah, we don't like Germans, but it's not shoot on sight.
In an alternate history, this is Indy starting an international incident with a bunch of guys who are assholes, but have not yet started World War II.
Are absolutely assholes, but Indy doesn't have that information
Gotcha.
yet.
Yes.
Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nazis suck. Shoot them, of course.
Yeah. But I think not. I think Indy is just shooting the Nepalese guides who don't speak
a couple of them,
English or German and were just hired to carry some of the Nazis' things.
Yeah, a couple of them were definitely not white German guys.
No.
Indy just killed some dudes who were like, yeah, we can tell you where the bar is, where Marion works.
Yeah. Hey, it's
they
over
just
here.
Knew where the bar was.
They just knew where the bar was.
Oh, I have to point this out because I love this. I'm sorry we're already done talking about Marion because I got to go back to her because she's great.
No, it's fine.
This is what I love about that whole scene in the bar. So, like, she meets Indy, then the Nazis come and they have a big fight scene or whatever. You have to rewatch that scene, keeping in mind she has had 12 shots.
It is insane.
She just finished a drinking contest with a man double her size who passed out. So she had 12 shots, and within seconds, we see Indiana Jones enter.
Yeah.
That's a day.
She's trying to close a bar. She's cleaning, which...
She's ready to throw up and pass out
after that amount of alcohol, even attempting to clean in any way is a goddamn triumph of human nature.
There's a reason she just throws the shot glasses.
Yes.
And not, like, before the fight even starts. She's just like, I can't clean this. And she just throws the tray of shot glasses. She's had 12 shots, Indiana Jones.
Uh-huh. She is fucked.
She's in no place to... negotiate terms, to be interrogated by a Nazi. Like, the fact that she didn't just puke on them is incredible.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that I like the callback to that and how three-dimensional they make her character.
Ooh, yeah.
With the fact that she can handle her alcohol. Clearly, we've proven that. We have an establishing scene about it. Then in the tent, she's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Belloc and I am going to trick him into a drinking contest, and he'll underestimate me because, like, I'm a pretty woman, and he thinks he's cool, and he's going to be drunk and an idiot, and I've got a knife. But when Belloc's like, this is my family estate's drink, like, different alcohols hitting you different and her being sincerely kind of fucked as he kept up with her, I think was a nice kind of like twist on what the establishing shot was.
Oh, I didn't think she was fucked up at all. I thought she was just playing along because she can like sober herself up whenever she wanted in that scene.
I think she was playing along, but when she grabbed the knife and still fell over to the ground and asked like, what are you drinking? I think that was her in that moment being like, I shouldn't be this fucked up. You should be fucked up. And him being like, I've been drinking this my entire life. So like everyone is better at certain liquors than others, you know?
I guess.
But no, I took that as her being like, my plan has backfired a little, but you're still somewhat drunk, and I have a knife. Advantage me, skidoo, I'm out of here.
Oh, I took that as her faking it the whole time. I didn't think she was drunk at all. Because like she would start laughing and then just stop and check in and then start laughing again. I thought she was that, or I don't want to believe she like was drunk, but if she was, then like, man, she also was in a desert and they gave her no water. You're going to be pretty out of it pretty fast. So she might not have factored that in.
Yeah.
The lack of hydration.
Yes. However they got out of the desert / that boat ride is going to be pretty brutal for her in a lot of regards. Her and Indy. They're all in pretty rough shape. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of rough shape, so I think we have to, at the very least, talk about the incredible practical effects in this film. I mean, we talked about iconic shots. When that Ark melts their faces,
it looks really fucking cool.
It's weird to be like, this shot of faces melting is like an iconic piece of cinema and one of the most beautiful shots I've ever seen, but it genuinely absolutely is.
Yeah.
Watching those Nazis melt, it melts my heart.
It works.
It absolutely works. It's guys who you're like, yeah, blow them up. Great. Love it. Wrath of God on these motherfuckers. And also, it just looks incredible.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing how good it looks. And like to do it to not just one face.
And
3 faces.
I think they are incredibly lucky because one of the negatives that I will say about this movie, other than like Indy being a dick, is that this ending, it is a shit ending that if it wasn't so well done visually would kind of fuck everything up. And obviously like visual effects in retrospect, you know, you're watching them today, they're not necessarily as good. I think it's still quite good. And just knowing how good it was at the time is legendary. It looks awesome. It is awesome.
It looks awesome, but you're absolutely right. If they did not have a groundbreaking effect in this scene, you'd be like, why aren't we done yet?
Yeah.
Why are we still here
Why is God real?
What? God's real? But then you just like, you don't even latch on to that God's real because you're like, their face is melted and then the lid just fell back on. This rocks.
Legitimately, like that's an insane sentence that you just said that I completely agree with. That you forget that God is real.
You forget that you have proof that God exists.
Incontrovertible.
In Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Cannot be denied. God is real. That's a magic box full of God lightning. Uh-huh. But you're like, mostly I just was here for the faces melting. It was so good. It's incredible. That's how good the effects are.
Yeah. Yeah, you forget
what
God
a
is real.
compliment.
That is messed up because like, yeah, it just looks incredible. It just looks incredible. I don't know what else to say about it.
For a movie that also has no other like effects like that. Like, it's not like you're watching, like, a zombie movie or something that's just full of effects and there's one really good one. It's like, there's, like, one painted shot of a Jeep falling off a cliff and then almost nothing else. It's like, it's all practical and, like, it's cool. It's like, it's cool they got so many snakes and it's cool and things like that. But this is the only, like, groundbreaking shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wildly impressive.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's a really good melting shot. It's a great GIF. It holds up really well. And God is real. And God is real.
I really need to watch the other 3 Indiana Jones movies. I mean, they all have magic, but I don't know if they all are like, God is real. I guess the third one's about the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I think the Holy Grail is just like, you know, I guess, that is still just like God's real.
Or Jesus at least was real.
Yeah. Like, and that's the other thing where like, I'm not going to defend the movie because Crystal Skull is still an insane thing. But I remember at the time it came out, people really latched on that the movie was about aliens. Yeah. Like, people were really like, can you believe how absolutely fucking insane it is that our adventurer movie has alien stuff in it? I'm like, God's real. God lightninged faces off in the first one.
That's
An actual ghost protected a chalice in the third movie. Are you...
No, I'm
aliens?
With those people. I'm with those people. Because you can't have aliens when you've already established God. You either have aliens or you have God. You don't get both.
I can actually kind of get on board with that as an argument.
If there had never been God in
that's
the Indiana Jones movies, then aliens. Aliens did it all. Jesus was an alien. This box is full of alien tech. It's alien stuff.
Sure.
But if you've established God, unless it was all alien stuff.
Retconning it as alien stuff then could make it work, but I can get on board with what you're saying. You need to choose
what
whether
your
or
franchise
not
is.
God
is it aliens or God?
/ magic is real, or aliens are real and doing it all. I agree with you. You got to get on board with one or the other. But the conversation at the time was like, no one was bringing up
that God was real.
That God was real.
In the Indiana Jones franchise. Canonically.
And makes some wild decisions as a god.
He leaves an immortal knight in a cave.
Yeah, the concept that the U.S. government has the world-ending god weapon just in a warehouse. And somewhere. People were still just like, or reviewers were still just like, aliens is the problem with Crystal Skull. I'm like, I think it's actually other problems with Crystal Skull. But also, I think the other thing about this ending, and any other movie like this, any kind of like a relic hunting movie where some kind of mysticism or there is some incontrovertible proof that religion is true and good and real. Like 100%, like the lead character is like, whatever, in a scene like this from Indy or in a different movie where it's like, God came down, I saw God, I know incontrovertibly God is real. And then Indy, despite being faced with this information, continues his normal lifestyle, which I think is his normal head-shooting, non-worrying lifestyle.
He doesn't good place it. He's not like, I need more points, I need to get into heaven.
Because for any character who is confronted with the incontrovertible proof that God is real, it should be an existential crisis that changes the course of that entire character's arc. I am not a religious person, but if I saw a bunch of lightning come out of God's box and melt Nazis, and then ghosts swirled around, and then I opened my eyes and the Nazis were gone and the skies closed and shot the top of the box back on, I'd be like, okay, step one, no more shooting people. I'm not shooting people. I'm getting rid of my gun. I'm getting rid of my gun, step one. Step two, I am no longer stealing things from indigenous tribes.
Please stop doing that. Yes.
The amount of life change that you would have to immediately enact, especially as a piece of shit like Indiana Jones, is huge. Absolutely huge.
There really should be a huge... I mean, maybe that's why the second one's a prequel. Maybe they were like, we can't come back to Indiana Jones, Man of God. Yeah. He will not be the same person we have met on the first journey of Indiana Jones. So Temple of Doom, you're a prequel. He doesn't believe in God yet. Yeah, that would change everything.
Literally everything.
That or... Indy took all the wrong lessons from learning that God exists. He knows God is real, but he's like, God spared me. I must be crushing it.
Right.
God killed all those Nazis.
Yeah.
But he said I get to live. So he must like that I shoot people. He likes that I steal these artifacts. God said I was good. I survived the rapture of the box.
Indy, you were
That's
only
the
good.
lesson he would take.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like, Indy, you were only good in that room. In that room.
The bar was so low.
Like God came out of that box and was like, I'm clearing out 99% of y'all. And Indy, you were lucky that you happened to be in the worst human room.
Mm-hmm. And also had your eyes closed?
What does that...
Is there a deleted scene about closing your eyes?
I don't understand where this comes from all of a sudden.
Like, it seemed like there just needs to be some kind of throwaway line about, like, you cannot look upon the face of God or something.
So one line.
All you need.
Yep.
Just one line like that.
When he's showing, like, the federal agents the book. Mm-hmm. And like...
Lightning shooting
and they're
out.
like, there's lightning coming out. And he's like, yeah, you can't take the lid off. We were never meant to look upon the works of God.
Or...
Like, that was not meant for us today, so you can't look upon it with sinners' eyes or something.
And I need to look at the photo again, but like maybe like the guys holding the box had blindfolds on or something to like give you a hint.
That would be a cool.
I don't know if
they
did. I don't have it open.
Yeah.
I didn't check at the time because I wasn't bothered when the movie started, and I was when the movie ended.
Sure.
Because they hadn't brought up why you have to close your eyes.
Close your eyes. Why that saves you.
Just in case, I guess. But also, Indy would never have closed his eyes. A man who will let Marion die rather than destroy this box would have the archaeological need to know what's inside it. He would not have physically been able to close his eyes.
Yeah, Indy, I think Indy would literally, like, with his eyes closed, would be like, Marion, open your eyes real quick and tell me what you see. And then as she died, he would be like, I got it. Thank you, Marion.
I figured it out.
Exactly
Figured out the clues.
how you wanted to go.
Oh, Marion. Wasn't it cute when I told you that it didn't hurt when you kissed me on my elbow? That was my redeeming scene.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say, we touched on it briefly, when the military guys show up with questions about the Ark, I think that might be one of the most brilliant exposition ideas of a movie I've ever seen. Of like,
what do you mean?
Well, like at the very beginning, the military guys show up and they're like, we've got these Nazi communiques and we don't know what the Ark of the Covenant is.
Oh, at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
okay.
And there's just a big exposition scene about like what the Ark of the Covenant is, why we have to find it. And I think explaining to military guys who just like found some words that they can't Google because it's 1936 is actually like a brilliant exposition device of just dropping a ton of information right off the top. Really great writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. That was clean, just laying a pipe for the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of questions about the Ark at the end though.
Lay it on me. About it being in a box in a warehouse, or the fact that it is filled with dust and does not have the commandments anymore?
I would believe I think that the military brings me the most questions.
Okay.
I need to know, do they know it's magic? Because there's no way that Indy gave it to them and they were and he was like, don't open it, it's magic. And they were like, yeah, of course. Like, they opened it. Like, the military wouldn't have believed him that God exists and it's full of magic God lightning. So, like, how many military people died? And then they were like, oh, fuck, put that back in a box. Put that in the warehouse.
Oh, you think, like, they ran some testing on it, everyone died, and they're like, close it up and put it with the deadly weapons that we can't open?
Yeah, I think they have a huge warehouse full of deadly weapons they can't open. I have to assume that they tried to use it once, and it killed a bunch of people, and they were like, we have no idea how to talk to God.
So then let me ask you, do you think everything in that warehouse is some kind of, like, occult magic is real God weapon?
I think everything in that warehouse is stolen artifacts.
Okay.
But I think only some, if not just the one, is a magic God weapon.
Okay.
Although the show Supernatural did tell me there are a lot of God magic weapons. So there could be a few more. There's like some kind of horns and there's spears and there's stuff. There's a lot of God weapons out there.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's all stolen stuff.
Okay.
And then I think they were like, just put it somewhere.
So rather than a museum, they've just kind of like locked it up to be hidden away again.
Yeah, I think they couldn't control it.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
I think that's why it was locked up in the first place. I think it was killing people's own armies too much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
I think all you could do...
what was happening with it in general.
I think all you could do to use this as a weapon is a genuine Trojan horse. Of you leave it in the middle of a field where you know an enemy army is coming, they find it and open it, and they all just die.
Right. Or you bird box it. You just get a bunch of people wearing blindfolds to carry it around.
Yeah, blindfolds work.
Because apparently it's seeing it that does it. Even though...
seeing is belief?
Even though when it's
dying.
put in the Nazi box, which has the swastika and the Nazi symbol on it, it is... the Ark, even when closed, seems to hate the swastika and burns all of the imagery off of the box, implying that even closed, it has its own will, and its will is that God hates Nazis is the will of this box. So why is looking at it a thing?
Yeah, like it should just kill Nazis.
It should just kill.
It should kill Nazis with their eyes closed.
Indy and Marion should just be able to look straight at it and be like, "Hey, by the way, we're not Nazis." And God's like, "Cool,
dude."
And that's it.
Yeah.
Why is looking at it a thing?
It's annoying. It's frustrating for a movie that covers most of its other bases.
Yeah, a lot of bases for a lot of time to cover. Yeah. Well, I'm feeling good on Raiders of the Lost Ark. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We had a lot of goofs, but it's an incredible movie. We didn't really touch on like the very good goofs, the uniform that's too small, shooting the guy, but it's all classics. You all know about it.
Yeah, absolute classics. The crypt scene is fantastic. I like all of this movie, and visually, it's just incredible. Every single shot, even like the silhouette of them against the skyline, digging into the tomb as well. I love
the fact that we also didn't talk about how they dig a foot away from the Nazis.
There's a lot going on that site. All right, it took until morning for like
him to be like, I didn't hire those guys.
Be like, what are they doing over there? Fuck these guys. Yeah.
Fuck, so funny to be like right there.
Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change. So now that we discussed everything we discussed, What would you change about this movie if you could change anything? But before we do ask that final question, we want to remind you, as we do every single week, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get them, wherever you're listening right now, let that platform know you like us. Go give us 5 stars. Go give us a review. Or just go right on your Twitter or your Facebook if there's nothing you can do there. Tell somebody that you think we're cool.
Yeah.
Tell somebody.
It's a free way to support the podcast. Tell somebody.
It's free. You'll feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Just tell somebody.
Just tell somebody.
And they'll be like, thank you for this good news about a good podcast.
Oh, and the other week on the podcast, I asked for people in the UK to leave a review. And we did get a few UK reviews. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The drought is over.
I meant to write it down to give you a shout out, but you know who you are. Thank you. I appreciate you for your review in the UK.
Thank you for doing our will.
We appreciate you. And as well, if you want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on Patreon.
You can check out Patreon. It is a way to support creators, and you can get as little as $1 a month, and you get stuff for your support, and we really appreciate it. You can get Text from Superheroes a day early. At the $10 level, you get extra episodes of this podcast, one every month, and immediate access to all the ones we've done. It's a full-length episode without ads on something we've never covered on the regular show. There's tons more Talk from Superheroes awaiting you.
Absolutely. There's many of ours
with good words like these ones and excellent sentences.
Excellent sentences and many of ours. Yeah, as soon as you sign up at the hero level, you get immediate access to the back catalog. So there is a lot waiting for you over on the Patreon page. Go check it out at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That's patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. We appreciate you. Anyone who's willing to check it out, and you can cancel or change at any given time. So if it's in the budget, do it. If your budget changes later, change it. And if it's not in the budget, we understand and appreciate you anyway.
If it's not in the budget, leave us a review. Yeah. But we appreciate you, and thanks for listening.
And it was Bando Baby in the UK. I was looking it up. Bando Baby. Thank you, Bando Baby in the UK, for that review.
Bando Baby in the UK, crushing it.
So check it out.
You could be like them.
You could be like them. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/fromsuperheroes, patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
I have very minor changes. It's a very, very good movie. My change is to make Indy just a little bit of an asshole and actually give him a bit of an arc. In my change, Indy... he does leave Marion with the Nazis the first time. And the second time, he actually does try to blow up the Ark. And he decides her life is more important, but the missile launcher jams.
Oh.
I want him to decide human life is more important than artifacts. I want him to choose Marion over it, choose her life. And then it explains why they stay together, why she's not mad at him anymore, that he has grown as a person, maybe why the box doesn't kill him. So he tries to shoot it with the missile launcher jams, so he doesn't destroy it, but he genuinely tries. I would love this for him. I would love this for Indy. I would root for him so hard if he actually had tried to destroy the Ark of the Covenant. And then just as a little add-on, I want a little bit more for Marion to do. I touched on this earlier. When they're tied up with the box, because he didn't destroy it, so it still happens, I would really like it if she has to convince him to not look at it, because I do think he is very devoted to archaeology. It's basically he wants to find artifacts. He won't destroy them. They're more important than life. I think he would not be able to not look at what's in this box. And I would like Marion to be the one to be like, Indy, you have to close your eyes. And she kind of saves him for once. And they just survive together in that way. But more importantly is that he does try to destroy the Ark of the Covenant. That's my big change.
Interesting.
So Indy becomes a better person.
That would be nice.
What about you? What would you change?
I love yours. I didn't think of doing it in the bazooka scene, so I really like that. But I have the exact same change as you, or very similar, which is that Indy needs to end this movie in a different place than where he started it.
He does not grow.
He does not grow. He does not change. He doesn't evolve. And this movie doesn't need him. The end final scene is a bunch of Nazis dying because they're inherently bad and because God doesn't like them. And Indy has no impact on that in any regard whatsoever and has made no personal growth or change. So my main thing is that, yes, Indy needs to end in a different place than he began, and he needs to choose Marion over the Ark. He needs to realize that he's maybe not all of religious and cultural artifacts need to be stolen and sold. So
he could just put it back in the tomb.
He could put it back. That actually was going to be my change, which is this whole final act takes way too long and nothing happens. He gets on a boat and then the boat gets overtaken, but there's no fight, there's no struggle, there's no anything. Then he hides on a sub. Then he's just on a random Nazi base on a small island, I think. They're not at Germany yet. So this all happens on a small island when really, like, this could have happened in the desert or even on the small island. And if the choice was instead of being tied up and being forced to close his eyes, he had, like, read or learned some additional detail as to what the Ark actually does, which I think is often, like, the lesson of these adventurer movies that have actual real magic, or like a mummy has come to life, or like Ra as a god exists. Any adventurer movie where gods are real and some type of magic is going to occur. Typically, the hero needs to learn an extra detail as to why this cursed item doomed the people who took it last time. And he never learns that. He never like figures out, he's like, why was everyone in that tomb a skeleton? Maybe they opened this once in the past, and that all the skeletons I saw were actually people who were trapped in there when they opened it.
Yeah, he never delves into the history and the culture, and he learns more than he needs to. He's always just like, Bible says it's here.
So I would like it if the final thing was like maybe on that little island, he's fighting his way out with Marion, and like he has to consider leaving it behind. And like he's like, it's going to kill them all, but maybe I can. And Marion has to like talk him out of it, be like, you can't rescue it, leave it to be lost again forever. So instead of it ending up in a random American warehouse, it could end up lost to the ages from another doomed group of people who stole it. Which I think should be the lesson here, which is that,
just leave it where it is.
Yeah, a bunch of doomed conquerors stealing sacred artifacts is not going to turn out good for them. Should be the lesson.
I like that a lot. Yeah, if they're just on a random island, they can just leave it there.
Yeah.
And just no one will ever find it again. If anyone does, they'll also die.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Leave things where you found them. Don't take them to England and sell them.
Yeah.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah. Stop meddling with God's murder box.
He told you not to meddle with the murder box.
Yeah. But I like yours as well. I agree. He needs to choose to save Marion over the artifact. I hadn't thought of doing it in the bazooka scene, and I think that actually really works.
I like that we both were like, Indy needs to be a better man. Excellent.
Yeah, and Marion deserves better.
Marion deserves so much better. Like, I really kind of want to watch Crystal Skull again to be like, did you grow? Did you earn her? Yeah. Because I know they get together in that one.
The final scene when they're leaving, and he's like on the steps of whatever government building they are, and Indy's like, those stupid bureaucrats. And she's like, can I buy you a drink?
Can this be about us?
Like, the fact that he still does not give one fuck that she is in the room, and she is like, have you learned anything?
No,
is
he's
so
still
frustrating.
He's still picking the Covenant over her when it's long gone.
She's a goddamn catch.
She's the treasure.
Yeah.
She was the treasure all along.
Absolutely.
She is a catch.
Well, that's going to be it for this week. I think we changed it. I think we made it better.
We did make it better. They said it couldn't be done.
And we did it. And we will be back next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett.
Season 1, baby. Covering it all.
Season 1 of the book. We'll be talking about that next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me on Twitter at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can reach me at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.